Over the last 2 seasons under offensive coordinator Ben Johnson, the Detroit Lions have become one of the NFL's best offenses. And that's great news for fantasy football. However, usually when you're dealing with an elite offense, the players inside of that offense tend to come with very, very expensive price tags in their upcoming fantasy football drafts. So today, we are going to talk about the Detroit Lions and what to expect from them in 2024 fantasy football. We're going to talk Jared Goff, Jahmyr Gibbs, David Montgomery, Amon-Ra St. Jameson Williams, Sam Laporta, and we're going to talk about them all right now in episode 18 of Inside the 20 by Basement Brewed Fantasy Football. The Detroit Lions are entering year 4 of the Dan Campbell era, one that has been wildly successful ever since Dan Campbell became the team's head coach in 2021, seeing year-over-year improvement. He took the team from 3 wins in 2021 to 9 wins in 2022, and ultimately to 12 wins in 2023, resulting in the first division title that the Detroit Lions have won in 30 years. 3 decades without a division title came to an end with Dan Campbell at the helm in 2023, ultimately bringing the team just 1 game short of a Super Bowl appearance, something that a lot of Detroit Lions fans that I know thought they would never say in their lifetime. Not surprisingly, Vegas sportsbooks are expecting continued success for the Detroit Lions here heading into 2024, setting the over-under at 10.5 wins at least as of this recording, giving them minus 220 odds of making the playoffs. The Detroit Lions are favored to win the NFC North. They have the 3rd best odds of winning the NFC Conference, and they're tied for the 7th best odds of winning the Super Bowl. Now, more importantly for fantasy football purposes, which is what we're all doing here in the first place, the Detroit Lions are refreshingly one of the few predictable offenses in the NFL, meaning for fantasy football purposes, we pretty much know what to expect. We pretty much know what we're getting from the Detroit Lions as long as Ben Johnson is the team's offensive coordinator, as he has been over the last 2 years when the team has been a fantasy football juggernaut, finishing 4th and 3rd in offensive yards and 5th and 5th in scoring. The Lions are a fantasy-friendly unit to attack in the running game, where they finished 13th and 7th in rushing attempts in 2 years under Ben Johnson. They finished 11th and 5th in rushing yards, and they finished 3rd and 1st in rushing touchdowns. They're fantasy-friendly in the passing game under Ben Johnson, where they finished 11th and 9th in passing attempts, 8th and 2nd in passing yards, and 8th and 4th in passing touchdowns. So to put this all another way, the Detroit Lions, at least under Ben Johnson, quite literally at every single position, check every single box of what you would look for when making fantasy football decisions in 2024. They offer plenty of volume, right? They play very fast. They finished 12th and 2nd in the NFL in offensive plays executed. They're efficient with that volume. They finished 4th and 3rd in yards per play and 3rd and 8th in scoring percentage, or the percentage of drives that result in points going on the scoreboard. They're frequent flyers in the red zone, offering plenty of scoring chances, finishing 2nd and 5th in red zone attempts over the last 2 years. They're efficient when they get into the red zone. They finished 2nd and 4th in red zone touchdowns. They finished 4th and 3rd in red zone touchdown percentage, or the percentage of time that a team reaches the red zone and scores a touchdown. TLDR, the Detroit Lions under Ben Johnson, ever since he came to town in 2022, have been a fantasy football goldmine, offering every single thing you could possibly want in fantasy football, from volume to efficiency to scoring chances, and they do it at every level, from quarterback to running back to wide receiver to tight end. So, what should we expect from the Detroit Lions in 2024? Are you a software wizard? A code ninja? A forge master? Or maybe even just a mad scientist? Then come build your career ladder with Infinity Labs, an award-winning technology company, best place to work, and business of the year with best-in-class benefits and compensation. Visit i-labs.tech. That's i-labs.tech today, where you can learn more about Infinity Labs, our expanding national presence, and why the status quo has no hold on us. Heading into 2024, the Detroit Lions offensive arsenal looks nearly identical to the 2023 unit that finished top 9 in basically every single offensive statistical category in fantasy football. They finished 5th in scoring, 3rd in yards, 9th in passing attempts, 2nd in passing yards, 4th in passing touchdowns, 7th in rushing attempts, 5th in rushing yards, and 1st in rushing touchdowns. The 2023 Lions finished top 9 in every offensive category, and that entire supporting cast is returning for another campaign here in 2024. The only noteworthy, I guess, name that played for the Lions in 2023 that won't be wearing a blue and silver jersey in 2024 is Josh Reynolds. And candidly, his 64 targets, his 40 catches, his 608 yards, his 5 touchdowns, that won't be terribly difficult to replace in 2024. Now, the Lions didn't add anybody noteworthy this offseason. They didn't add anybody noteworthy through the NFL draft or free agency, but they didn't need to. These guys finished top 9 in every statistical category, and that entire supporting cast is coming back, right? Back is offensive coordinator Ben Johnson, who had an opportunity to leave for head coaching opportunities in the NFL. Back is Jared Goff, who's been a top 10 fantasy quarterback in each of the last 2 seasons. Back is Jahmyr Gibbs, who finished as fantasy's RB10 as a rookie despite splitting the backfield with David Montgomery. Back is David Montgomery, who rushed for over 1,000 yards for just the 2nd time in his career, not to mention scoring a career-high 13 touchdowns and finishing as fantasy's RB17, which is the 2nd best finish of his entire career. By the way, speaking of Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery, those guys combined for 24 touchdowns from scrimmage last year, just 1 year after Jamal Williams and DeAndre Swift combined for 25 touchdowns in 2022. So in the last 2 years, the top 2 running backs in Ben Johnson's offense have combined for 49 touchdowns. In other words, we know exactly who's getting the ball when Detroit gets near the goal line. Back is Amon-Ra St. Brown on a shiny new contract after he finished as fantasy's wide receiver 7 in 2022 and wide receiver 3 in 2023. Back is Sam Laporta, who did the unthinkable last year, unseating Travis Kelce as fantasy football's #1 tight end as a rookie, which does not happen in fantasy football. Back and primed for a career year, by the way, is 2022 12th overall pick Jameson Williams, who for the very first time in his career appears set to play football in week 1. That's never happened. Heck, anything before week 5 is new for Jameson Williams. So for the first time ever in his career, Jameson Williams is headed towards week 1, locked in as a full-time starter in one of the best offenses in football. So yes, the Detroit Lions lost Josh Reynolds, but now in his place is going to be an improvement in Jameson Williams. Now, the ultimate question is, where do all of these players, where do the Detroit Lions fit in to the overall 2024 fantasy football landscape, right? Knowing an offense that you want to invest in, that's one part of the game. But typically when you're dealing with an offense that's as good as the Detroit Lions are, they get pretty expensive in your 2024 fantasy football drafts. For example, as of this recording, both Amon-Ra St. Brown and Jahmyr Gibbs are top 12 fantasy football picks in underdog best ball drafts. Sam Laporta is an early 3rd round pick, right? So when you're dealing with an offense that's as elite as the Detroit Lions are, that comes with a cost in fantasy football drafts. And the ultimate question is, are these players, as good as they are and as elite as they are these players worth the cost that's associated with them in your 2024 fantasy football drafts? Growing up, one of my favorite things to do was play Madden on my PlayStation, PlayStation 2, PlayStation 3, PlayStation 4, PlayStation 5. And when I say play Madden, what I really mean is simulate the games and simulate the seasons, because my favorite part was managing the team, scouting prospects, doing the draft, making trades, signing free agents, and everything that goes into managing a football team and leading a franchise to glory, building it from the ground up. And if that's your type of deal, if you love that sort of thing, you're going to absolutely love GM Dynasty, which is a simulated football game that I recently started playing and instantly fell in love with. With realistic game planning mechanics and immersive features, GM Dynasty puts you in the hot seat of sports management. And it's not just a game. It's a simulation of the real deal. I invite you to get your free team and compete in Basement Brewed Fantasy Football's upcoming tournament, where there's going to be prizes for whoever wins the thing. Register your account on gmdynasty.com, and when you do, join the Basement Brewed Fantasy Football contest using the link that we left for you in the show notes. So, are the individual players on the Detroit Lions worth the cost that's associated with them in 2024 fantasy football drafts? In short, some of them no. And inside my 2024 fantasy football draft guide, I've not only tiered and ranked every single player in fantasy football for easy decisions, but I've also included contextual 2024 previews detailing what to expect from every single player on every single team, not just the Detroit Lions. I've also included an interactive ADP tracker that suggests the perfect time to draft the player that you're targeting. This is one of many league-wrecking resources that 300 plus Basement Brewed fantasy football customers are using to outsmart their friends, dominate their leagues, take down DFS contests, and cash in on NFL bets in 2024 and beyond. If you'd like to gain access to 30 plus hours of weekly research, to unfair cheat sheets, to an amazing online community, a Discord server of 300 plus other fantasy football brains, then I invite you to join us at basementbrewedff.com/sign up, or just use the link that we left for you in the show notes. I do recommend signing up before the first of the month, because pricing bakes early bird discounts into every single month to reward people who sign up earlier as opposed to waiting until fantasy football season. In other words, people who sign up in May will pay less than people who sign up in June, will pay less than people who sign up in July, August, September, etc. So don't wait until it's fantasy football season. Save yourself a couple dollars that you can spend on buffalo wings, soda, beer, whatever fits your fancy. And oh yeah, by the way, as a thank you for supporting my small but growing business, as a thank you for helping me chase a childhood dream, please enter promo code inside the 20 at checkout, where you're going to get 10% off your first year with Basement Brewed Fantasy Football. If you enjoyed today's episode, then you're going to enjoy recent episodes where we've been discussing the shifting fantasy football landscape and what to expect in 2024. We've talked about NFL coaching changes, NFL free agency, incoming NFL rookies, 2024 team previews, and everything else that changed the 2024 fantasy football landscape. And all of it can be found right inside the Inside the 20 playlist on the Basement Brewed Fantasy Football YouTube channel. If you like this content, there are 3 different ways that you can get more of it. Number 1, subscribe to the Basement Brewed Fantasy Football YouTube channel. Number 2, sign up for Basement Brewed Fantasy Football's newsletter using the link that we left for you in the show notes. And number 3, purchase a subscription to Basement Brewed Fantasy Football, where you will get unlimited access to our 30 plus hours of weekly research, our unfair cheat sheets, and our amazing Discord server that's filled with hundreds of other fantasy football brains that are ready to help each other win every single day. That's it for today, but come back every Tuesday and Friday for more league-wrecking fantasy football insights. I'll see you on the fantasy football field then. Cheers. This brew's for you.